But it is time for us to hit social media for our cash tag segment. For that, we'd like to welcome in Landon Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. And we have fast market contributor Jenny Horn alongside us as well to talk some Kroger.
Yes, so Kroger has earnings tomorrow, March 5th, pre-market, and this is a name, of course, that we love to talk about because we love to talk about retail and groceries, and they have around roughly 3,000 locations, under 24 names in 35 states.
They're massive.
They're massive, and it always kind of surprises me because we don't have Kroger, of course, here in Chicago, but we do have Mariano's, which is very beloved to all of us Chicagoans. But, of course, when we could talk about grocery, talk about the big box retailers, we have to talk about last mile delivery because we talk a lot about how the consumer is getting more eager to have their products sooner and sooner, and they're not satisfied with now waiting multiple days. I mean, we're the most greedy consumer of all time, I think. So as of September of 2019, the company had implemented pickup and delivery at nearly 2,200 locations, and these investments seem to be paying off. As of the last quarter, they reported earnings, e-commerce sales had jumped 31% year over year. So they're growing and they're doing a really, really good job of it, and people seem to be really happy. So that goes into my first tweet, which says, I tried really hard to not like ClickList because I thought there was something to going grocery shopping. But life happened, and this week I did Kroger delivery and ClickList, and now I'm all yours, Kroger. So I have to say there is
Lindsay's
something
volatile.
Yes, no kidding. There is something to going grocery shopping, but Landon, when it comes to Kroger's delivery and pickup, what are you seeing with your data?
It's very strong data. It's actually spreading. I think that was sort of the initial take was when people actually shop for groceries online. I remember 5 or 10 years ago, people were saying the same thing about clothes, and it just takes a little while for people to get used to it. But once you do, you convert over like Lindsay did there. But yeah, our digital sales growth, our online pickup and delivery, all that is very strong. The charts are up and to the right, confirming what Kroger's saying. I think they're expecting, like you said, around plus 30% for fiscal year 19, which is ending this quarter. So very strong numbers from Kroger. And overall, the purchase intent, which is what we're looking at here, is doing well. It's not fantastic. It's sort of flat, maybe up a little bit year over year. I think that overall for Kroger, we're a little bit concerned that the expectations may be a little high. I know that on the last quarter, they beat on same-store sales, or they had strong same-store sales numbers, but overall the sales were flat. We're seeing fairly flat numbers on a quarter-over-quarter or year-over-year basis when compared to previous revenues. So we think the pace is maybe slowing, and we've seen some misses in the past. So we're a little concerned. But if investors are strictly looking at how the online sales and the delivery and pickup are going, then I think they will be pleasantly surprised.
Landon, does your data show, and this may be, I'm connecting dots in the future that aren't really there, or I don't know, frankly. So the question is, what's the end game? Where does this go from here in terms of online shopping? Do these stores, these brick and mortar stores that Kroger has, 3,000 of?
3,000 roughly, yeah.
Do they just become big distribution centers down the road? And does the traditional grocery store just go by the wayside, frankly?
I think you're going to always have to be able to go pick up food, go pick up your ingredients to make a nice meal. But I think for a lot of people, it could go in that direction, especially as you get companies like Uber delivering things on a more consistent basis. Driverless cars will be huge for that. So, 5 or 10 years down the road, I think that we could all be going to the grocery store way, way less. I think you still need to have it there because, there's sort of that old school mentality. You got to go and squeeze the oranges and see which ones you like. But overall, yeah, I think that's the direction that things are trending. Amazon saw it very early. I think they may have partnered or bought the wrong company. They didn't have enough footprint when it comes to distribution. So I think that Kroger and Walmart and Target, they're going to figure that out and get the people so that they can receive the groceries at their home without doing a lot going into the store.
Yeah, and Landon, I like that you bring that up because I feel like we've talked about how Amazon could be a headwind for these companies, but it seems like a Kroger, a Walmart, a Costco has done a really good job kind of fawning off Amazon because of these physical locations that people still do like to go to. So I think that's actually been a bright spot for them. And Megan mentioned something interesting, that with this coronavirus, we're seeing an increase in mentions in Costco because people are going and stocking up at these grocery stores. I went to Target and it was like a mad scene. It was crazy. And we're in Chicago. I mean, we're not even seeing that many many coronavirus headwinds specifically in our city. So it seems like the grocery stores could be well positioned in this current landscape. So that kind of goes into my next tweet, which is from Mark Lexus, who says, I guess you could make the case to go long Kroger, more people staying in and eating at home. And I love this hashtag was coronavirus and chill, which is funny because when the market was selling off last week, Tom White made the joke that Netflix was up because people are just staying inside. I mean, I don't know if you're seeing this at all in your data, Landon, because of course this is more short term, but with this coronavirus, it seems like these grocery stores could be poised to benefit, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the biggest one, like you mentioned, Costco, was unbelievable. People talking about stocking up. I think if you're thinking stock up, you go to the bulk place like Costco. But as you can see on this chart, we're looking at the fiscal years, the fiscal quarters, I'm sorry. You can see in highlighted in red this quarter that's reporting versus the same quarter last year, up a little bit. But you'll notice that the quarter that's in sort of a lighter color there at the far right is the pace for the current quarter. That's not being reported. We're only about a month in. It covers February through May. It's off to a very strong start, and I think a lot of that does have to do with the coronavirus fears of people stocking up. If you don't have a Costco membership, you're going to go to a grocery store, and if there's a Kroger near you, that's where you're going. So yeah, I think this is going to have some positive effects for some companies, and yeah, Netflix, Costco, even Kroger are some of those.
Jenny, I was at a grocery store on Monday, and I witnessed in an aisle full of, toilet paper, this woman trying to pile like 10 big things of toilet paper into a cart. And I watched this thing that turned into a Lucy skit about midway through because they kept falling and she's trying to figure them out. And I'm just standing there watching her going, what in the name are you doing? And it was literally a comedy skit breaking out, her trying to get 10 things of paper towels into a grocery cart.
That just makes me want to order online even more.
Ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
And I hate to admit it, but I was one of those people who actually was like, wait, if this actually gets to a quarantine situation, I don't have any soup or anything. So I actually had to go and do some
Get
similar,
your canned goods.
Yeah, some of the stuff that was non-perishable. But Landon, I want to kind of tie this all together and ask you a couple questions. We had a comparison chart up there, just a little bit of Amazon, Costco, Target, and Kroger. Kroger clearly was the laggard of those four. And to me, there's one clear difference between Kroger and those other three. They're primarily just in groceries. So are those other companies benefiting from electronics or toys or some other kind of segment of their business alongside groceries that if something like Kroger can't really participate in?
Yeah, I think obviously Kroger can only sell groceries, so that's part of it. And there's a lot more that goes into these other companies. I mean, Costco, you think of food, but I mean, the first thing you see when you walk in is a $200 60-inch TV. So it's wild. But yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. But Kroger's also doing a great job with, what we talked about earlier, pickup and delivery, but also their private label brands. Those are doing really well. They're competing with even like the Beyond Meats of the world. So you can go into Kroger and you can find a premium product if you like, or you can go private label, and those are also high quality. So they've got a lot of things for the varied budgets out there. So Kroger's doing well in that regard. But yeah, they're definitely not going to be able to compete with normal goods like a Target, Walmart, Amazon, or even Costco for sure.
And bringing this back down to a pure trading story, don't forget Warren Buffett is now in Kroger.
Right. He has a $550 million stake as like 2 weeks ago.
And guess what? Warren Buffett's history says once he starts buying, he just keeps buying.
Right.
So,
and I have to say, I know that, of course, Walmart is something like 4 times the size of Kroger, but their customer experience is so much better because they have a smaller scale. I mean, you go into a Mariano's and there's someone playing the piano and there's a full bar, which to me is like what brings me coming back.
And Landon, as we tie this to earnings, and we know that earnings is always going to be important, but with all this macro stuff going on, it's kind of taken a back seat. But with something like Kroger, we know that earnings has been a period of volatility for this particular name. I mean, you look at just this last quarter, the same quarter last year, it basically took all of these last 12 months after that to make up that gap down. And so Kroger over the last 5 years has been mostly down to the left there, or down to the right, as it's struggled to kind of keep pace with this market. But now you're looking at a stock that's kind of relatively outperforming. It's only 3% off of its high, with the rest of the market, at some points, 10% down in the year. And so when you start looking at that, are you concerned from a valuation standpoint that Kroger's been too resilient, even though your numbers are pretty strong?
Right. I think that's a lot of the concern. So if you look at what the stock has done, it's up about 50% in the last 6 months. It's really on a tear. And, it's been higher over the history of the company, but it's doing very well right now. And it's been whipsawing with the markets. I mean, this is a very, I guess, fun or scary time to be a trader. And it's interesting. I think that the markets placed their vote for the Democrat primary today. Yeah, I think that's going to come into play tremendously. Coronavirus obviously is going to be a huge factor. So there's a lot going in. When you look at the earnings reports specifically, I would say that we would lean bearish just a little bit because of potentially too high of expectations and maybe not strong enough sales. But long term, we love this company. And, Kevin, to your point, winners win, and I want to be on the side of Warren Buffett. So generally speaking, long term, I think we're bullish. Very short term for this earnings report only, cautiously bearish.
And so if I were to push it one step further and ask you how you would kind of approach trading this, would you kind of wait and see and maybe look to sell puts for entry below, or even wait for a gap down to buy shares in this name post earnings, as opposed to playing that bearish lean going into earnings?
I'm a trader. I like to trade. I would probably do something like a vertical where I'm very risk defined going into the earnings report. But I will say, with this kind of market volatility, my style, I'm going to enter with about 10 minutes left in the trading day, and I'm going to exit 10 minutes into tomorrow, because I don't want to have all these potential things shaking up the market. I hate when I'm right about the trade, but then the market moves it the other way. So I'm going to have as little exposure as far as time goes, and I'm going to stay risk defined.
Alrighty, great insight, Landon. As always, we'll see what happens when Kroger does announce these earnings. Thanks to Jenny as well.